I never used to pay much attention to gas stations. They were just blips on long drives, cold, fluorescent rectangles, humming between empty land and infinite roads. You stop, you fill up, maybe grab a drink, and you move on. That's all they're supposed to be. Interludes. Now I know better. It started last September. I was driving from Bakersfield to a work conference in Reno. Not a thrilling itinerary, but I'd made peace with that kind of life car snacks, truck stop coffee, podcasts stretched over endless desert miles. I left around 4:30 in the morning, still dark, stars smeared across the sky like chalk. I like that hour, when the world is half asleep. Feels like you're sneaking through a dream that hasn't woken up yet. I took California 58 East out past Tehachapi, then hooked north on 395, which meant hours of nothing but tumbleweed, mountains in the distance, and the occasional dead coyote melting into asphalt. Somewhere near the turnoff to Manzanar, I noticed I was running low on gas. Normally I planned for this, but I'd skipped my usual fill-up in Mojave thinking I could make it farther. Dumb. I pulled up the GPS and searched for nearby stations. That's when I saw it. Glint PetroMart. A tiny red pin, maybe 6 miles ahead, right off the highway. No reviews, no pictures. Just a name. I didn't think anything of it. My tank was near empty and I didn't have much choice. I turned off at the next desolate junction and followed a 2-lane road that seemed to pulse with heat. The gas station came into view maybe 10 minutes later, rising like a mirage at the end of a flat ribbon of pavement. The first thing I noticed was the sign. It just said Glint in cracked white letters against a faded green background. No logos, no prices. A rusted metal pole held it aloft like a tired scarecrow. The building was squat, almost bunker-like, with 2 ancient pumps standing crooked under a rusting canopy. One was wrapped in yellow caution tape, the other blinking ready in blocky green font on a digital screen that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1994. There were no other cars, no lights inside, but the pump worked. I put in my card, it actually took it, and started filling up. That's when I noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no insects, not even the soft hum of distant trucks. Just the glug-glug of gas sloshing into my tank and the dry whistle of wind through the empty lot. I glanced around. There was a small convenience store attached, its windows smeared with grime and half covered by old flyers for expired sodas and open mic night with no dates listed. The door was closed, but something about the dark interior behind that glass made my stomach knot, like it was waiting for someone to step inside. I finished filling up, got back in the car, and drove off without looking back. But about 2 miles later, I noticed something strange. My hands were sweating. Not because of the heat, I'd cranked the AC to full. My mouth was dry too, like I'd been breathing dust. I glanced in the rear view and saw nothing but heat shimmer. The gas station was gone, swallowed back into the nothing. I chalked it up to nerves and too much caffeine. But later that day I stopped at a diner outside Bridgeport, ordered a BLT and tried to Google Glint PetroMart. Nothing, not even a cached listing. I tried looking on maps again. No pin, just blank highway and brushland where it should have been. I even scrolled back through my GPS history. The detour was there, but no destination, no name. That night I dreamed about the pumps. Not the building, just those 2 rusted machines standing under a night sky that never got dark enough. One of them was leaking something black. It pooled and stretched toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't wake up. When I finally did, I was sweating through the sheets. The sound of the pump's digital display ticking like a metronome in my ears. I didn't tell anyone. What was I gonna say? That I found a ghost gas station and had a bad dream? But then I heard about the disappearances. A friend sent me a Reddit thread a week later. Weird stops on 395. Buried deep in the comments, someone mentioned a gas station you can only find when you're almost empty. Another said they stopped somewhere called Glint and hadn't seen their travel buddy since. Most replies were jokes. Creepy pasta, obviously. But one caught my eye. Don't stop if it's too quiet, especially if the second pump's covered in tape. That's not for your safety, it's for theirs. I closed the browser and didn't sleep that night. I tried to tell myself it was just online bullshit. But I kept thinking about how my hands wouldn't stop shaking at that pump. How I never saw a bird in the sky. I hadn't seen another car, and part of me was afraid to check the gas receipt. Afraid there wouldn't be one. But the worst part, a week later, I found a smudge of something black on the sole of my boot. Thick and oily, like tar but colder than anything I'd ever touched. There's more. But I need to write it carefully. Because something is still following me, and I'm not sure it was ever just a gas station. After I found the black smear on my boot, I did everything I could to pretend it didn't matter. I scraped it off with a stick, tossed the stick into a dumpster behind a Rite Aid, and told myself I'd stepped in oil or spilled something in the car without noticing. But I kept checking the soles of my shoes after that paranoid now, like I'd tracked something into my life. About 4 nights later, something woke me up at 2:17. Not a sound exactly, but a pressure, like someone leaning their weight against the inside of my skull. I lay there with the covers pulled to my chin, the dark too thick around me, and a strange knowledge in my gut that there was something under the bed, not just the primal fear kind, a certainty. I didn't check, I didn't move. Instead, I focused on the sound, because there was one after all. Faint, impossible, but real. A whistle, long, slow, tuneless. It rose from under the bed, no louder than someone humming through closed lips, but I could feel it. In my teeth. In my nails. It wasn't whistling a song. It was calling something. A message, with no words. It stopped the moment I sat up. I didn't sleep again. The next morning, I checked the underside of the bed. Empty. But when I peeled back the sheet, something caught the light. A mark on the wood floor, oily, black and spiral-shaped, like someone had dragged a tar-covered nail in a slow circle over and over until it sank into the grain. I stared at it for a long time. By noon, I'd booked a hotel room in town. I needed to know what I was dealing with. That meant going back, at least near to where it started. The only lead I had was that old detour. I printed maps, traced the road, and packed a bag with gloves, a flashlight, and a crowbar. It sounds paranoid, I know, but something about Glint felt beyond normal, like it didn't exist in one place for long. On the drive back up 395, I kept checking my mirrors. Not for cars, for interruptions, shifts, glitches. Anything that might prove the world wasn't quite holding together the way it should. I passed through the same stretch where I'd found Glint before. Nothing. Just brush, dead road, distant hills. No signage, no cracked canopy, no pumps. But something made me stop. A patch of black dirt, perfectly circular, about 20 feet wide, maybe 30 feet off the road. It wasn't paved, it wasn't burnt, it was just wrong. Like a bruise on the earth. Everything around it was normal, gravel, dry weeds. But the circle was pure black, like it had been rubbed into the soil. I pulled off, got out, and the first thing that hit me was the silence. Again, no wind, no birds, no trucks in the distance. Just me and this circle. I stepped into it. The air felt heavier. My breath slowed. My legs got weirdly light, like I was sinking and floating at the same time. I bent down and scooped a bit of the dirt into a Ziploc bag, just on instinct, and that's when I saw the hole, right at the center. A round vent-like thing, half buried in the dirt. Metal. Not rusted, but pitted and old. And from inside it, I swear on everything, I heard that same low whistle. I fell back so fast I scraped my palms open. The sound stopped the second I moved. I didn't even close the car door when I got back in. I peeled out and drove until I hit a populated town. Bishop. I got a room at the Creekside Inn, locked myself in, and dumped the bag of soil in the hotel sink. There were tiny fibers in it. Not roots, not hair. Something gray and glassy, like spiderwebs soaked in gasoline. I didn't sleep again that night either. Around 3 o'clock, the hotel room phone rang. An old-fashioned thing I hadn't even noticed. I picked it up. heart hammering. There was no voice, just breathing. And in the background, that whistle again. Slow, repetitive. I hung up, yanked the cord from the wall. I left the hotel at dawn, eyes bloodshot, body humming with panic. But I didn't go home because I wasn't sure I had one anymore. My phone's GPS was showing Glint again, except now it wasn't in California. It was blinking in Nevada, out past Tonopah. Same name, same icon. It's like it was moving, following, waiting, and something told me that if I went again, this time it wouldn't let me leave. I stayed in my car for almost 24 hours after the hotel incident. Parked at a rest stop outside Tonopah, windows cracked just an inch, engine off, doors locked. I was too wired to sleep and too scared to move. I kept thinking about the phone call, the breathing, that damned whistle leaking through static like something old and patient was reaching for me across frequencies. Around 3:30 in the morning, the temperature dropped fast. The kind of cold that feels like it's sliding down your spine. The rest stop lights flickered once, then went out completely. Total darkness, except for my phone screen. No signal, not even one bar. I wrapped myself in my jacket and stayed still, trying to convince myself I was safe, that I was outside whatever radius this thing had. Then I heard the sound again, not the whistle this time. Something worse, the wet, percussive glug of a gas pump, rhythmic, heavy. A sucking sound liquid through thick tubes. It was faint but close, and it wasn't coming from outside. It was underneath me. I bolted out of the car. The pavement was still warm, but the air was icy. The noise stopped the instant I stood up, and that's when I saw the shape in the dark. Not moving, just there, far side of the lot, behind the restroom building. A tall, hunched silhouette that looked wrong in every proportion. The limbs were too long, but the torso was too short. One shoulder higher than the other, the head cocked unnaturally to the side, as if listening to something inside the dirt. I didn't shine my flashlight. I didn't breathe. It turned toward me without moving its feet, just pivoted, slow and fluid like it had no spine. Its head twitched. Then it stepped back and sank into the ground. I drove like something was chasing me through the world itself. Like every town I passed was just another page in a book this thing had already read. I made it home the next evening, but home didn't feel like home anymore. There were changes, microscopic at first. My living room lamp now had a second switch it didn't need. The fridge light flickered in patterns that felt like Morse code. The mirror in my bathroom showed a faint second reflection if I moved too fast. A delay. I tried not to look at it too long. I stopped sleeping. I kept hearing footsteps in the attic, but I lived on the top floor of a 2-story building. My neighbors moved out a week later, left a note on their door that just said, "We can hear it too." The final straw came 2 weeks later. I woke up at 4:19 a.m., not because of a sound, but because the smell of gasoline was inside my room. Heavy, rich, sickly sweet. I opened the bedroom door and found a trail of black fluid leading from the kitchen to the living room, curling in perfect spirals. I followed it with a towel and rubber gloves, trying not to breathe too deeply. When I reached the living room, the TV switched on by itself. Static, then, just for half a second, a still image, the Glint gas station. Same pumps. Same flickering canopy light, except this time, someone was standing beside the second pump. The one wrapped in tape. He wore my jacket. The screen went black. I threw the remote. It didn't help. That night, the spiral appeared on the floor again, this time carved into the hardwood. I booked a motel 2 towns over. Didn't leave a note. Didn't take much. Just my bag, my wallet, and the GPS. I checked it once, in the parking lot before pulling out. The Glint pin was there again, not in Nevada this time. Closer, much closer. It had moved to the edge of the town I'd grown up in. It was coming back. I checked into a roadside motel 2 towns over. One of those places with red neon signage and carpet that smelled like mildew and microwave burritos. I paid cash. Used a fake name. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. I even turned off my phone and dropped it in the motel ice machine, just to feel like I'd finally severed something. It didn't help. That night, I kept the lights on. I laid down fully dressed, shoes still on, keys in my pocket. Around 2:53, I heard the first knock. It wasn't on the door. It was under the floor. A single, deliberate tap, like a knuckle pressing against the plywood beneath the carpet. Then silence. 10 minutes later, another, slightly louder, and then a whistle. This time I recognized the tune. It wasn't a song, not really, but it was the same rhythm that came from the pump, the same pitch as the static-laced call, the same airless breath that leaked under my bed. I curled up in the corner of the room with a flashlight and waited. The carpet felt damp beneath me, not just sweat damp, wet. I lifted a corner of the rug and found a spreading black stain, like something had seeped up from below. It was moving. I left everything. Drove through the night, didn't stop for gas, didn't look at any screens. I didn't even want to think of the word glint, because every time I did, something shifted. I reached my brother's place by sunrise. He lives in a dense suburb with tight streets and no gaps between houses. I figured proximity might help, keep me anchored. I didn't tell him everything, just that I needed a place to crash for a few days. But even there, in his clean, well-lit guest room, things were wrong. On the second day, I found black residue on the inside of the window frame, like soot, but sticky. I scrubbed it off, and it reappeared the next morning. The reflection in the mirror? Still slightly delayed. The electrical sockets began to buzz at night, and worst of all, his baby monitor started picking up voices. Low murmurs, distorted. I heard a long hiss followed by a woman's voice whispering something I couldn't understand. My brother said it was interference from a cell tower. But I knew. I knew because the baby hadn't cried in hours. And when I looked in the crib, the child was sleeping but facing the wall, motionless in a way that felt posed, like someone else had placed them there. I left that night. I drove east. No destination, just the hum of the road and the mounting sense that if I stopped, it would catch me. Whatever it was, and by now, I didn't need a GPS to know where it was. I could feel it the way you feel a migraine coming on. A pressure behind the eyes. A frequency under your skin. It was never the gas station. That was just the door. The real thing is older. Deeper. Something that moves with us. A virus of space and direction. It finds places where people are already off-kilter, lost, distracted, vulnerable, and slips through. It replaces the ordinary with versions of itself. Fake pumps. Fake signage. Even the smell is too clean, too controlled, like a memory of gasoline. I think I stepped into a place that wasn't fully real. Or maybe more real than this. And it noticed me noticing. Every time I close my eyes now, I see it. The black circle in the dirt. The long shape crouched behind the second pump. A hand slowly raising from the concrete, beckoning me to come back. I won't. Not willingly. But I don't know how long I can keep running. There's a rest stop just north of Ely, Nevada. I pulled in sometime after midnight last Tuesday, more out of exhaustion than anything else. I hadn't slept properly in days. My eyes were shot, my thoughts twitching like power lines in wind. The parking lot was empty. Not a soul, not even a trucker. Just me, my dying nerves, and the humming neon of a flickering soda machine. I parked under one of the lot lights and climbed into the back seat. Tried to convince myself I'd only sleep for an hour or two. I woke up standing, not in the car, not even near it. I was on pavement, but not the same lot. This one was darker, the air still and wrong. I could smell gasoline and melted plastic. A low mist clung to the ground. Ahead of me were two gas pumps, not just similar, exactly the same. Cracked concrete, one wrapped in yellow caution tape. Behind them, the station. And beside it, the figure was watching me. The same too-tall thing with its crooked shoulder and arms that dangled just a few inches too long. I couldn't see the face. It stood half-shadowed under the flickering canopy light. The whistle started again, so soft like it was slipping straight into my bones. I couldn't move. The creature raised one hand-long, bony fingers stained with black fluid and pointed at the pump. The taped one. It was open, the tape now peeled back, hanging in slack curls, and the sound coming from inside it was not mechanical. It was breathing. Wet. Panicked. Close. I heard a voice inside the pump say my name. I ran, but I didn't get far because the station was nowhere. Every step took me deeper into the black mist. My legs dragged, my breath slowed, and the air thickened like syrup. Then the ground shifted beneath me, soft, wet. I looked down. It wasn't pavement anymore. It was skin, pocked, gray, pulsing faintly. Beneath the pumps, something moved. A ripple in flesh. The whistle stopped. A new sound took its place. Clicking, like something tapping against glass from the inside. And I realized I was at the bottom of the pump, not outside, inside, looking up through its glass window, watching a figure stand over me, blurred and distant, their face stretched in confusion. They looked like me. I woke up screaming on the floor of the rest stop bathroom. I didn't remember going in. I didn't remember unlocking the door. But I remembered the sound of that click. It still echoes when I lie still. That and the faint smell of gasoline, which follows me now no matter where I go. I can't use GPS anymore. No matter what I type, Glint PetroMart shows up first. No matter what direction I drive, the mile counter begins to decrease. I stopped using screens entirely. I don't use cards. I don't speak my name aloud. Not anymore. It's a game of delay now. A ritual of avoidance. Because here's what I know. Glint doesn't need to be found. It only needs to be remembered. Every time someone thinks about that station, every time someone tells the story or whispers the name, it gets closer, stronger, more real. And it wants to be real. It wants more people inside the pump. I'm leaving this as a warning, a record. But if you're reading this, if you've seen the pumps, or heard the whistle, or dreamed of black spirals curling underfoot, it's already too late. Check your shoes. Check your mirrors. And if you ever see a gas station with no price listed, where the second pump is wrapped in yellow tape, don't stop, because that's not a gas station. It's a door. And something on the other side has been waiting an awful long time to meet you.